Hello, welcome back to Marathon Man, where I'm going through Doctor Who from the very beginning, and you join me as we kick off Season 6. When kids are kids, there's a tendency to... Well, there was when I was a kid. I actually don't know if kids do this anymore, but there was a tendency to pull t-shirts over the top of your head and your face would poke through the neck hole. And I'm wondering if... I don't know when that started, but, you know, if anybody told me that it started with this story, if somebody said to me that the Dominators was the genesis of kids doing that, I could believe it. It could all stem from kids imitating the titular Dominators. Now, I only say that because, I don't know, it's sort of the only interesting thing about them, to be honest. And it kind of ties in with my own headcanon about these particularly rubbish Doctor Who baddies. Because it's hardly a practical outfit for a race of aliens who call themselves the Dominators based on how many worlds they have dominated. And it makes me wonder, how come the Dominators came to dominate so much when they are so demonstrably at it? Because you see, I don't think they have. See, in my version of events, they've recently adopted that name because they've only very recently decided that is what they're going to do. And this story basically depicts their very first attempt at it. They've decided to call themselves the Dominators. We're going to dominate a load of stuff. Let's get to it. Where shall we start? Dulcus. But they can't go in and say, this is our first time doing it. Obviously, they have to convey the image that they are formidable foes. They are the Dominators and they dominate. And to be honest with you, they've got to start somewhere. Think about it. It explains their uselessness. It explains their daft outfits. It explains the rubbish robots that they haven't really put much thought or effort into. And most of all, it explains their grave self-importance. Now, this story opens with a most seriously delivered info dump, and that doesn't bode well. Not that the Dominators improve either, they remain as such all the way through. They're written and performed far too rigidly, and at some points they even stand at right angles, so to be perfectly framed by a camera, which, in story, isn't there filming them. So why do they stand like that? They act so cliched that they either are a massive cliche, or they're acting in a way that they think they should now that they have newly assumed the name Dominators. More than anything, though, it explains their colossal overestimation of their own intelligence. They're stiffly walking around and turning their entire upper bodies in order to look around. They come with a sort of unearned arrogance that leads them to conclude that the Doctor is just a babbling idiot. Now, he is pretending to be, of course. But it's in such an obvious way that they are fools to fall for it. The Doctor isn't even trying that hard to come across like a moron. So the fault lies either with the script or with the characters. They're either a failure in terms of production or they're intended to be monumentally crap. Now, the optimist that I am, I obviously would prefer to think the latter, but it isn't quite clear enough for me to actually properly enjoy the joke, if that's the case. Put simply, there's too much of a risk that I'm actually laughing at it rather than with it. And that comes with the almost crushing feeling that Season 6 starts with a disappointment. It is a change in some regards from the previous season, although zooming about done here is a distinct difference from being isolated to one setting for the duration, but it's really only that with which I can find favour, as it still manages to buckle under its own tediousness. It isn't so much that it follows the same pattern as the stories immediately before it. Here there are elements from all over Doctor Who's back catalogue rather than actually having anything discernibly original about it. Now, admittedly, it's been a while since we've seen them, but here we have some more RP alien people with high technology, yet primitive dress. The Dulcians could meet the humans from the Ark and you'd struggle to tell the difference, I think. And that's not a problem per se. This seems to be like a standard depiction of an alien culture at this point. But when so very little exciting happens around it, and that's despite the threat of the planet actually exploding, that it kind of only really serves to highlight how unoriginal the story's trappings are. For me, this used to be, however small, a step up from The Wheel in Space, but having enjoyed The Wheel in Space more than ever, this doesn't feel like a step up anymore. It actually feels like a stumble. And that comes with it. That comes with its own sense of being like aggravating. There is at least some injection of humour to help it sort of like pass by a little bit more palatably. The aforementioned section where the Doctor sort of pretends to be stupid might come with a lot of questions about the competency of either the script or the villains, but doesn't stop it being really fun to watch. This is, after all, almost the modus operandi of Troughton's Doctor in every single one of his stories. Pull the wool over people's eyes with regards to just how clever he actually is. It's one of his defining characteristics, thought through to the last detail, right down to his choice of clothes. And that he steps it up to the extent that he does in The Dominators makes for an entertaining watch. It's the sort of thing Troughton is very, very good at. He's turning up one of the facets of his Doctor to 11, and with a performance as good as his, it would be a struggle to fail at that. He's afforded some very good moments elsewhere as well, moments which really help the story pass by a lot more easily than it might do. Without these, the story would have definitely been more of a struggle. For example, like his warning to throw the bombs after no more than 10 seconds, but taking nearly 10 seconds to issue that warning is very good stuff, and Troughton does it incredibly well. And it's this sort of thing that makes me, I feel duty bound to point out that there is good stuff in The Dominators, just sort of maybe not enough for it to galvanise into an actually good story. He also has two absolutely belting lines, one of which I'm pretty sure is a standard in like clip show retrospectives of the Second Doctor.
Oh, no, you're not thinking what I think you're thinking, are you? That I think, Jamie, depends on what you think I am thinking.
It's such a good distillation of the Second Doctor's character at this point. Scatty, rambling, but absolutely on point. And I do also think an honourable mention should go to...
But Jamie... It's a brilliant idea. It's so simple, only you could have thought of it. Oh. Eh?
Not particularly engaged by this story, I did find fun to be had in moments like this. And it's hard not to see a production re-energised, or at least that's how it feels to me. Like, the presence of Zoe is a bigger factor, I think, than first meets the eye. Like, she fits in very, very quickly, almost instantly, in fact, and she gets stuck in ways many of her predecessors didn't. In her first jaunt in the TARDIS, she's captured by Dominators, patent pending, and forced into manual labour. Now, for an unemotional sort, she shows a great deal of compassion and understanding to the Dulcians, whom she meets and finds herself in servitude with, and crucially, never really shows any fear. This combines to form the strong female presence which Victoria could sometimes be, but not all the time. Sure, Zoe is stuck wearing the native, very short dress of Dulcis, but judging by her actions, she is a valuable addition to the Doctor's entourage, and what I'm trying to say is that she becomes a firm friend to this viewer far more quickly than any companion since perhaps Vicky. This is only her second story and only her first trip in time and space, and she's already gone a long way to staking the claim of being part of the strongest TARDIS team yet. Now, key to this, I think, is her relationships with the Doctor and with Jamie, which feel very real and very, very warm. Her presence, feeling so fresh, really helps this story on its way, and the dynamic between the three of them being so new kind of means that this story never actually dips into being unwatchable, even though otherwise it might have threatened to. Basically, Patrick Troughton, Wendy Padbury and Fraser Hines save this story. The Quarks are never going to be menacing. They're not a design failure, though. They actually look fairly interesting. It's just they have a funny way of moving, more so than the Chumblies, and they've got an extremely silly voice. They are really unlikely death machines, and their reveal, though having proven to be deadly earlier, is not frightening in the least and not exactly befitting of cliffhanger status. That they are so unthreatening only supports my headcanon that the Dominators don't know what they're doing and that this is their first invasion. Now, thinking that, like I said, really helps me get along with this story better than I otherwise might have. That this could have been one episode longer doesn't really bear thinking about. Now, the decision to drop one episode from this one and add it to the subsequent one could have been a boon for this story and spelled disaster for the latter. Now, that isn't exactly what happened to the Mind Robber. If this had had a sixth episode, then this would have lost even more goodwill points. The seal is broken on the sixth season, and I now tick off 214 episodes. And the next story could lay claim to being the most nostalgic one for me. It never left me since I first watched it 32 years ago, and every subsequent time I revisit it, I remember every single thing about that first viewing. So when it comes to marathon, the Dominators always feels like a necessary stepping stone. The Doctor's absent-mindedness when explaining when to throw the bomb. The Dominators themselves, I still can't quite work out if their ineffectiveness is like a Space Museum style joke, but as I can't work it out, I may have to face up to the fact that their crapness is only deliberate in my head, and then they actually are just crap. As ever, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed discussing the Dominators and questioning the Quarks, then you know how YouTube works. Please do give it a like and share it around. It really helps no end. And what do you think of this story? Is it a refreshing beginning to the new season of Doctor Who, or does it have you pining for a base under siege? Is Zoe a really good fit this early on? Is she a good addition to the crew, or can she not hold a candle to Victoria? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you back here soon for one of Doctor Who's more balmy offerings. So if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button, clang the cloister bell, and I'll meet you in the land of fiction.